Hello, everyone. Welcome to Winged Horse Designs. I'm Donna Goodwin. I'm an independent Stampin' Up! Demonstrator located in Brookings, South Dakota. If you're here already, please make a comment so that I know that you're here and I know that I'm not talking to myself. Hopefully, I gave it enough time to actually get to both Facebook and YouTube. And let me know well, you don't need to let me know where you're watching from. The system actually tells me that. So I hope you had a wonderful new year. I went out to dinner with the family and then I came home and I watched a movie. I don't even remember what movie it is, so it must not have been a very impactful movie. Good morning, Harriet. Um, and good morning, Vicki. So I had a pretty quiet one. And good morning, Deb. And was I up at midnight? I don't think I was. I think I didn't quite make it to midnight. What can I say? It's not that big a deal anyway. I did wake up at midnight when the fireworks started going off, but they didn't go off for very long, so it was kind of nice. So I hope you had a wonderful New Year. Let me know what you did for New Year's. Did you do something fun or did you stay home? Were you quiet? Did you make it to New Year's Eve? And so a lot of things to talk about before I get started on the project. The new catalogs, if you ordered from me, you already have them in your hands, except for maybe Lori B. and Mary P. Yours are on the way. You may not quite have them yet. It depends on how the weather was between me and you with the post office. Harriet heard the fireworks too, yes. The online version, you'll be able to view it online on Thursday, and the link to that is in my Stampin' Up! Online store. You'll be able to link to that on Thursday if you want to look at the online version of that. I'm not sure if we're going to have our craft and chat this Wednesday. It depends on the weather coming in. If we get as much as they say we're supposed to get, probably not. We may have, but I will let those of you who have already, the class is full this week, but you can sign up at any time for that. And the information on that, you can also go to the My Stampin' Up! Store and click on events, and then you can see all the different classes that I have available. So, and you can sign up for the craft and chats. They're every Wednesday from 11 to noon. And we do one card and we sit and we chat and we talk about different techniques and things like that. So it's a lot of fun. We have a lot of fun. Like I said, this week is full. We may have to push it to next week. It depends on the weather. It's that time of year. As most of you know, because I've been talking about it, I am transitioning over to YouTube, but right now I'm streaming to both YouTube and Facebook. So it looks like most of you are joining me on Facebook. I do have one individual out there joining me on YouTube, so that's a good thing. My regular classes are January 17th at 10, 2, and 6 if you're local to me here in Brookings, South Dakota. And last announcement before Happy New Year, Harriet. Yes, Harriet, you are signed up, as well as Terry and Deb and one other individual who's not on here as much as I can tell. The replay from last week, those of you who watched on replay, as you know, on live when we did the drawing, Vicki and Lori got the card then. And on those of you who came in after the fact and watched the replay, last week's card is going out to Cheryl W. in Texas. So thank you, ladies. Now, let's see. Terry says, Happy New Year. And Vicki says she doesn't do resolutions, but she stayed up till after midnight. Wow, good for you. I don't do resolutions either because I think that resolutions are just broke. I like to set goals because then I can adjust them as I go along. It's not something that I broke it. No, I just adjust it as I go. So I'm going to switch cameras and we're going to get started. Oh, I wanted to do it this way. This way. There we go. So here's what we're going to do today. It's blue, kind of matches the skies the other day, not so much today. But I thought, we tend to use congratulations cards for weddings and graduations and maybe a new job. But there's a lot of different things you can say congratulations for. So anything, any little thing that someone's done that you can send them a congratulations for, and let them know, give them a little pick-me-up. So on the front, it just says congratulations. This is just stamped on the front. And then all the insides of these cards are the same, but it says that you're grateful for the everyday magic of them. I kind of really liked that sentiment. So this is, so here's one. All I did was just stamp it flat. No embellishments, nothing fancy. Then this one I did, this is the one we're going to demo. These are the two we're going to demonstrate today. Actually, I'm going to demonstrate one, but they're basically the same. And this is called, this technique with the stamps is two-step stamping. But here, typically you use 3 layers, and it's called triple stamping, but we're just going to use 2, so double stamping. And we're going to stamp these 2 white layers at the same time, and then we're going to put a mat in here to hide something, and you'll see what I'm talking about later. So I mounted this one flush, picked the matte dots, the 2022 to 2024 matte decorative dots. And then for this one, I lifted it up with Stampin' Dimensionals, brought in iridescent rhinestones, and put a gold bow on it. So we'll work with this one as we're demonstrating. So I'll just set that up in the corner here real quick. I'm using a two brand new stamp sets. I'm using the Fancy Flora Suite, or a couple of pieces from Fancy Flora Suite. Good morning, Linnell. These will be available on Thursday, so you can't get them until then. So kind of a sneak peek. The two-tone Flora has all these floral and a few stems, but these floral images and two-step stamping. So you have your background and your detail. And then the sentiments, congratulations and grateful for the everyday magic of you, are from Something Fancy. Both of these come with matching dies. So we're going to use a couple of the dies for this stamp set. We're going to use this die and this die. Oh, and this die too. I like sentiment sets. So this one has happy birthday, congratulations, thank you. Here's to beautiful beginnings and happily ever afters. Kind of good for a wedding. Nothing fancy, just love. May the good you do come back to you. That's a really nice one. This is a good one for me. I am always late getting out birthday cards. So it says, I didn't forget your birthday. I'm just stretching out the celebration. Like we're doing for Vicki. Remember last week we thought it was her birthday, but it's this week is her birthday. So we're just stretching out her celebration. You matter to so many, and then with deepest sympathy. So I like the fonts and I like the sentiments. This one, like I said, comes with matching dies. So it comes with some dies here to cut out some of those images. We're going to use these 2 today. And then it also comes with a background die that I'll use sometime in the month of January that does an entire card front. So that'll be fun when we get to that one. I am going to feature this suite the entire month of January, so we should have lots of new ideas as the month goes along. And I brought in, like I said, I'm going to use these today, the iridescent rhinestones. 3 ink colors. We're going to do our 2-step stamping with Balmy Blue and Orchid Oasis, and then we're going to do our leaves in Old Olive. The measurements are in the description, so you don't need to write them down. I did break them out based on the cards. So for this first card, if you were doing this one, and I'm not going to demonstrate it, but all you need is a 5.5 by 8.5 card base and 2 sheets of a neutral color that are 4 by 5.25. Then the other 2 have the same measurements, and we're going to do that. 5.25 by 8.5. I'll fold that in a minute. 2 pieces of basic white that measure 4 by 5.25, one for the inside, one for the outside. A piece of Orchid Oasis that measures, I should have these measurements at hand, shouldn't I? They're in the description. 2 1/8 by 3 3/4. So basically a smidge larger than this white one that measures 2 inches by 3 1/4. Okay. So we'll work on this card. Put this in the corner. So I'm going to go ahead and fold this. And I did not pre-score it. I'm just going to fold it in half and give it a good crease with my bone folder. And by the way, you can ask questions all along. To make it easier for me to find them back later when we do question and answers, please put a Q, a space, and then ask your question so that it'll be easier to find when we get there. I'm going to set that aside. I'm going to set this piece aside. And these 3 pieces are stamping pieces. So I'm going to move this aside. And we need some masking paper, or Post-it notes work just as good. I'm going to use the masking paper just so I can show you how it's used. So I'm going to bring in the Balmy Blue, and I'm going to stamp my flowers, the background part of them. In Balmy Blue. I'm going to move the ink pad out of the way, and I'm going to move these out of the way temporarily. So this is on my masking paper, and we're going to die cut these out because I didn't do any die cutting on the actual card, but I need to cut my mask out. So you wouldn't have to use the dies to cut these out if you don't want to. You can just cut them out with the scissors. It just depends on how much you like to cut. So I'm going to bring these in. Actually, let's move this aside for just a second. And I'm going to cut them out with the dies. Oh, wrong die. Wrong flower stamped. That's why. This flower, I'll cut that one out later. But for today, we'll just do this one. We wanted this flower, the smaller one. This is the little mini die cutting and embossing machine. It measures about 3 1/4 inches across. And it's great for these smaller pieces. Doesn't take up as much room. Now, sometimes it can be a little bit tricky to get it started. There we go. And of course, my handle still squeaks, even though I tightened it up this morning. And then we have our mask cut out. Now, I actually take my scissors and I trim it in real tight. Good morning, Paula. I like to trim it in real tight, but by die cutting it first, you don't have to deal with the excess paper, but you don't have to die cut them first. If you don't have the dies, you just simply fussy cut. And remember, you don't move your scissors, you move your paper underneath. And I would go that way all the way around. Now, I have some pre-done, so we'll use those. So I'm going to bring in some scrap paper to protect my desk and bring in these pieces that we're going to stamp. So let's start with the let's start with the inside. That's the easiest one. So let's start with the inside. So I'm going to bring in Balmy Blue, and I'm going to bring in Orchid Oasis, and I'm going to bring in Old Olive, and I'm going to try really hard not to put my stamp in the wrong colored ink, which I'm pretty much notorious for. So on the inside, we're just using the small flower. And whatever flower you want to be, oh, you know what? I'm getting ahead of myself. Let's do the sentiment first, which I already have mounted on the Stamparatus. So I'm going to bring it in, and I'm going to hold it with the tight magnet real good and flush up into the corner. Move these guys out of the way. Oh, and I'm not going flush the corner. That's right. When you're going flush in the corner, if you have this stamp in flush the corner, sometimes it's really hard to get it inked up here on the corner. So I like to bring mine over a bit. So I'm going to ink this up. Flip it over, give it a good back rub with my little tool. I want it a bit darker, so I'm going to ink it up again. Oh, I like that. That's nice and dark. It looks black on my screen, but it actually is Orchid Oasis. It is a purplish color. So we can set this aside. And now we can start working on our flowers. So we have our purple and our blue and our green. We'll need these pieces, so I'll just move them over here. And I'm going to start. So the image you want to be front and center up front, that's the one you stamp first. So I'm going to stamp, this one is the one I want to be front and center. Then I'm going to come in with the detail in Orchid Oasis, and I'm going to stamp over it. There's a little bitty piece here that's kind of clear, and there's a little bitty piece that I don't know if you're going to be able to see here, but if you line up this, piece right in here, it'll line up pretty much right on top of it. And then you get your detail on there. So before I go any further, here's one that's really well used. I'm going to put a mask with that, with that masking paper. I'm going to put a mask over the top of that. And then I'm going to do another flower. Let's go this way on this one. And we'll do our detail. It's kind of hard for me to see without getting my head in the camera. I think that's the right place. Not bad. I'm actually going to put another mask over the top of this one. And you can keep using these masks over and over again until they lose their sticky. And then I'm going to do this flower up here. Like this one's almost losing its sticky. It doesn't need to stick for long. I got that one a little bit close to the sentiment. And then I'm going to come in and put some leaves in. And that's where these masks come in handy. So let's put a couple leaves here. I want all my leaves to come out from. Now we're going to mask this leaf. So this next set of leaves that we stamp are actually going to be behind this one. And I'm going to stamp some this way. I'm going to move this one to this other flower. And I'm going to move this leaf to these leaves. And I'm going to make this leaf come as if it's over here. There's another branch of flowers over here. And now when we take all these masks off, you can see that this flower's top, this one's kind of behind, the leaves are behind the flower. So there's our inside. I'll set that aside. We'll start working on the front. The first thing we need to do with the front is put just a little bit of double-sided adhesive, just a tiny little bit. Very tricky. Oh, masking's not that tricky. And we're going to mount this pretty much in the center. That looks pretty close to center. So we're going to put this right in the center and we're going to leave it on here. And I'm going to bring in what I should have been using all along, but I have a desk mat, so I tend not to use the piercing mat, but the piercing mat's really critical when you're using photopolymer. They need a bit more cushion. So we're going to start with the bigger flower this time. And I'm going to put it up here. You want to put a lot of pressure, especially where the two pieces of cardstock meet. Now you notice there's this halo. That's where the mat comes in later. So we'll come in and we'll stamp the detail on this one. And here on the detail, you can see these little stymon. They match up together as well. I need to stand up, I think, to do this in order to keep my head out of the camera. And I'm going to come over to the edge a bit. And that gives you your detail there. And then we'll come back in with this smaller flower. After we put a mask on this guy. I mean, we're all familiar with masks these days, right? But this is a fun mask. And we'll start building some more flowers, just coming around the edge again. And again, I'm not going to worry too much about that. I'm going to push really hard where that seam is. And so we're probably going to have a little more halo in there than what I probably wanted, but it'll all work out. I'll put another little flower down in this corner. Bring in some detail. Now we're going going to mask up these flowers. And this guy's probably pretty much done. After they get so they don't stick anymore. So Paula said that was very tricky. I think she was talking about when we were working with the mask. And Harriet says, we did this in an Ollie class and you couldn't remember how to replicate it. Yes, we did it in an Ollie class. So like I said, you don't need to buy masking paper if you don't want to. Post-it notes work really well. I like the, that's the wrong one. I like the Post-it notes that are sticky all over. The only part that's not sticky is just this little striped edge. They're really hard to find, but you can find them on Amazon. And they're just called super sticky or all over sticky, something like that. Just look for where it says that it's all over sticky. That's what you want when you're doing Post-it notes. You can do the kind with just the sticky up here at the top. Just be aware that that's the only part that will stick when you're putting it down. Or so you want to stamp up close to that edge. Or you can use a little bit of adhesive. And then when I talk about this part, you'll understand how that adhesive works with that, because you don't want anything super strong. So I'm going to bring in my leaves now. And I want to do these leaves right in here first. No, I don't. I want to bring in my sentiment first and then work my leaves around it. Now, these small ones are really hard to do without getting ink all the way around the edges. So I'm just going to bring in a little wet towel. And just go around this edge. I could have mounted this as well into a Stamparatus and done it that way, but it's just one tiny little sentiment. And since I was talking, it's drying a bit, so we'll just put some hot air on it. I'm full of lots of hot air. I can do that. And we're going to stamp this like right about in here on this piece, and it just barely fits across that 2-inch piece. And I held it there for a few minutes to give the ink a chance to transfer from the stamp to the paper. Okay, now we'll come in and do our leaves. And we are actually done with the blues, so we'll put them away. Less likelihood of getting anything into them. And we'll start adding some leaves. And we'll mask this leaf. It definitely, you're right, Paula. It will be good stamping weather today and tomorrow. At least here where we are. It depends on where you're watching from. Maybe you have really nice weather. We have snowy weather. Actually, we have quite a storm predicted to come in. Let's go this way. So it's only one little leaf, but that's okay. Let's go ahead and bring a couple leaves down this way. We're going to move this mask on top of these. They actually don't quite join, so I like to put so this one I'm going to put just under the edge there. And even though you can see here they don't quite join together, when we do the matting, it'll look like they're together. And we'll put one up here. And that's all of our stamping. Now comes the fun part. We're going to take all our mask off. Now to separate these two pieces, rather than lift them this way, which runs the risk of bending your cardstock and tearing your cardstock, we're going to take a hold of a corner here and a corner, maybe the middle here. We're going to twist it, and that will break that bond as well without tearing any of our cardstock. So we're going to mount this piece on our mat. I'm going to bring in the silicone mat so I can get the ink, or the adhesive ink, so I can get the adhesive real close to the edge here. And then if I get any over the edge like I have here, I can just simply move this over, and if it were stuck, it wouldn't stick to the mat. So we're going to mount this on our purple. And again, if you don't like those eighths of a measurements, which I know some of you out there don't, just mount this on into the corner on one piece and then cut the other two sides off. Now for this one, and then this is where you're going to start matching up. For this one, I want to raise this up with dimensionals. Now these are dimensionals left over from paper pumpkin, so the backing doesn't come off quite as easily. And then we're going to match up our leaves and the edges. So we're basically just going to match these pieces back up together. I tend to use the leaves as my best guess. And down in here, I didn't do too good here getting it to not have the halo, but you notice on this card that I did. So I just didn't press very hard. But I promise whatever I send out will be better. And we'll bring in some iridescent rhinestones. So grab my take your pick tool. So when I'll get to your question during question and answer, Terry. Thank you. So I'm just going to put a few rhinestones on here. I'll put one over here. And then the tricky part whenever you're on camera, tying a bow, right? And this twine can sometimes be tricky, tying a bow, because it's really slippery and doesn't like to stay tied. So you got to pull it really, really tight. I'm going to use a little mini glue dot. This is actually a, whoops, got the backing off. This is actually one from a paper pumpkin kit, and I like these because they're super small. And we'll put our bow on here. This bow doesn't want to stick. And then we'll put our inside in and put this on our front. So let's start with the inside. Take all that, get it out of the way. Because I've already built this all the way up, typically I build on my card up, but since I already have all this, it's going to be hard to get adhesive around the edge because of this layered effect. So I'm going to bring in liquid glue for that one. And there you go. So we did 2 different techniques today. We did masking and we did double stamping. So time for questions and answers. So let me scroll through here and see what we have that we haven't addressed yet. So we did have earlier, Paula said it's a good stamping weather today and tomorrow. Yes, here in South Dakota, it's good stamping weather. And so Terry asked, do you use the Stampin' Up! Product and cleaner to clean your stamps or baby wipes? It depends. The bulk of the time I do use either the Stampin' Up! Chamois, or I really like, because it gets into all the grooves, I really like the original stamp cleaner or stamp and scrub. One side you put your cleaner on it and the other side you leave dry. And I really like this. And I do like the stamping cleaner. I mix mine half cleaner, half water. It cuts down on the foam and it makes the cleaner last twice as long. I like this because it really gets into the grooves and gets the grooves clean. So I really like that. When I'm doing things like when we were working with this one and I had ink all over the edge here, I do use baby wipes for that. Baby wipes work really well, but you could use a wet paper towel. You can use anything that you want. I have discovered through a friend of mine the best baby wipes for your stamps, because they don't foam and fray and cause little pieces of strings hanging off, is the Kirkland brand from Costco. Patty says she made it to the end. She'll go back and watch the replay, I'm sure. And Paula says, mine is so old it's pink and smaller. Wow, that is a much older one. But that's okay. It doesn't matter what color they are if they still work. Yes, I like the Stamp and Scrub. Great tip. Oh, yes. I forget who taught me that tip, Terry, but that is it doesn't foam as much, and your solution lasts twice as long. That's a wonderful way to go. So I'll wait here for a second and look for more questions. In the meantime, I'll get the system here started for the giveaway. Before we do the giveaway, actually we want to do this. There we go. Sorry, I should have been doing this while we were answering questions, but that's okay. Oh, really? No one has any more questions? I find that a little hard to believe. Okay, we're going to get started here. I'm going to take that one off. And you should be able to see that we have, okay, so we have 9 of you out there. Are you ready? Here we go. Oh, well, obviously I can't win my own card, so we have to do that again. And as you can see, this little red with the thing, it picked me from my own YouTube channel. Imagine that. So we'll do it again. Paula. So Paula's getting the card. Congratulations, Paula. And let's see, I want to remove that. Go this way. There we go. So congratulations, Paula. I'll get that card in the mail tomorrow. I'm not sure it'll be picked up tomorrow since we're supposed to be in the worst of the storm then. But whenever the mailman picks up my mail, I'll get it. And then I will do my old-fashioned manual way of writing all the names down and putting them in and pulling them out for those of you who come in on the replay. But it doesn't mean that those of you who are live still couldn't possibly get it. But it allows those people who are watching replay to have a chance to get a card too. So real quick, how day is to double stamp? I'm not sure what you mean, Deb, so we'll talk about it later when we're chit-chatting on the phone sometime. And Paula says she always knew, or Harriet says she always knew Paula was a winner. Yes, Paula is kind of a very special person. So thank you, everyone, for watching. Hope you stay in, stay warm, stay safe if you're in the winter storm of the United States or anywhere else in the world. And if you're down in the summery parts of the world, we envy you. We really do. So have a wonderful week, everyone. I will see you next Monday at 10 o'clock here on YouTube and Facebook. Have a wonderful week. Happy trails.